My name is Nathaniel Weisenberg. I'm here in Needham, Massachusetts with Chickie Broderick recording this oral history interview for the Atomic Heritage Foundation. It's Monday, April 25th, 2016. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and in 1921.
Where in Boston were you born?
Oh, the Forest Hills Hospital.
And can you tell me a bit about where you grew up?
I grew up in Milton, Massachusetts, on Brandon Road, and went to public school, to Tucker School on Blue Hills Parkway, and then from high school I went to Notre Dame in Roxbury, Notre Dame Academy in Roxbury.
And when you were growing up, what were you interested in?
I was just glad to be alive and happy, and I loved to play tennis, and had loads of friends, and we always went to the same place in the summer, so that the summer became really where we lived.
Where did you go in the summer?
To North Situate in Massachusetts, south of Boston.
And for people who aren't from around here, what was that like? What is there to do there?
Well, it was about 5 roads from the ocean to the end of the little community. And it had a golf course and tennis courts up there, and it had the whole ocean down there. And my sister and I would every so often say to my dad, you know, we really would like to do something, I've forgotten what it was, on the harbor, which was about 3 miles down. And my father would say, look, you have the ocean there and the tennis and golf up at the top of the hill. If you went down to the harbor, I've forgotten what it was, my dad would say, I couldn't go to Boston because my office overlooks the harbor. And he said, I would worry about you all day long. And we, being 10 years old, would think, isn't he the best father in the whole world? And he was anyway.
What did your father do?
He was in lumber business, Atlantic Lumber in Boston.
So are there other specific memories you have about what it was like growing up there?
I have a younger sister, 8 years younger than I, Jean. Yeah, and she died quite a long time ago.
I remember.
Betty and I are the ones still kicking around. She's a year older than I am.
I remember you telling me that you were quite close to Betty, your older sister, because she was just a year older than you.
Oh yes, she used to live in West Newton, up on West Newton Hill, and then with her family, and we would head out, and someone to like a wild animal farm or something was up in New Hampshire there, and we'd say we were from a group from St. Paul's School, of St. Paul's Church in Wellesley, and Betty arrived with her gang, and I'd arrive with mine. Oh well, we always had a good time.
So were you interested in chemistry from an early age?
Oh, I loved chemistry. I did, yeah. I had had 3 years of chemistry before I got my job. General, organic, and something, which I've forgotten.
So what were you doing? Do you remember when the war started? What that was like? What you were doing then?
Oh, I was in college. Yeah, in Connecticut.
Where did you go for college?
I first started down in Washington at Trinity College, a girls' Catholic college, and my sister was already there. And Betty was the torch of the family, and so she was at Trinity, and when I got down there for starting, the nun came and greeted everybody, and she got to me and she said, "Oh yes, you must be Chickie, Betty's sister." And right then I thought, this is not going to work. So a while later I said to my dad, "Dad, I'm not going to go back there." And he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I've got a couple of friends that go to this little college in Connecticut. I think maybe I'll do that." And he said, "Good for you. That's what you should do." So I just left after that year. I was elected president of the class freshman year, but I was out of there. and that took care of that. I'd been Betty's sister for a long time.
When you moved to Connecticut, did you enjoy going to college there?
Oh yes, I liked that. Yes, it was a couple of hours from Boston, a couple of hours from New York, and I had a nice boyfriend who was in school in New York, so it worked out very well. Never did marry him. Never did even get close to marrying him.
What was the name of the college in Connecticut?
St. Joseph's College. It's tremendous now. It was a very small one then, but I get things from it still, and it's tremendous. I can't imagine. I wouldn't probably even like it.
What year did you graduate?
1943.
Do you remember around that time where lots of men must have been going off into the army, going off to fight? Do you remember what sort of the climate was? Were people just talking about the war? What did it feel like?
Yes, when I was a senior in college, I had friends, young men who were off to war. Yeah.
Did you ever? Did they ever write you letters? Did you hear about what they were doing?
Not really. No. They were just friends. You know, you meet, and they're fun people.
And so, what did you do after you graduated from college?
Well, I didn't do anything for a year or so. And then I went to MIT. I don't know, I just was in there doing chemistry, and then they came in later to the lab I was in and said we were changing and we were going in to do this kind of work, which was practically the same thing. But then they put a soldier in our lab, at all times, just to stand around doing nothing, but protecting us, I guess. And then right after all that was declared, and everybody knew about it, I felt I could leave. So I left, and I went to Harvard. I went, to Florida to visit Betty and Charles. I figured I'd done my bit, and we weren't going to be doing it anymore. So straight chemistry didn't interest me.
How did you get the job at MIT?
I walked in and said I was a chemist, and they put me in that little chemistry thing. We were just doing regular chemistry. I don't know what we were doing it for. And then they came in and took over the lab, the Army, I guess. I never wondered.
So somebody from the Army came and said, we're changing the kind of work that you're doing. Well, I guess it sounds like you were still doing similar work, but they just said that this is an Army project now.
Yes, it was then. Oh, Lord, my father couldn't believe it. He kept getting, and all his friends, those things you have to fill out, you know, that you were an all right person. And my dad's friends kept calling him and saying, Tom, what is going on in your family? And they were getting for Betty. My sister was at Harvard doing the underwater sound stuff. And my dad's, all his friends were getting things from them to be cleared. It was a pretty tight place.
So were they doing, they were doing sort of security checks on both Betty and on you?
Yeah, that's what they were doing, checking, make sure you were who you were and why and how, yeah.
Was this right when you started the job, or was this when the Army
came in? Yeah.
Did they ever ask you any of those questions, or were they just asking family members? Did they ever interview you?
Oh, I really can't remember, but they must have been asking each one of us, because my dad had to send things out to his friends. So it was pretty tight. So, and we in those days were very conscious of war. And you knew if you were doing something like that, you weren't to tell it. You weren't about to go out and say, you know what I'm doing. You know, you didn't do that.
So they didn't have to tell you that you shouldn't do it. You knew not to do that.
Oh yeah, you knew it. You knew war was a very big item in our lives at that time. And everybody knew was going, and it was just a tight time.
Did you know anyone at MIT when you started working there?
Yes, one of my good friends went in. She was doing chemistry at MIT too, and I didn't know anyone who went to MIT at that time.
And did you
know, as a student?
Did you apply for the job there because your friend was also working there?
Yes, but yeah, Priscilla, who lived around the corner from me in Milton, said, well, come on. She said, I just walked in, and she was a major in chemistry, and she said they put me in a lab. She said, they'll do that for you. They'll do, they need people. I said, well, they'll need them if they want me to be a chemist again. So I was a chemist.
Do you remember when you started working at MIT?
Oh, Lord. And for 44 or 45, I didn't go to work right away. And then, yeah, I worked in 44 probably.
Do you remember where at MIT you worked, in which building?
In a very old building. In a very old lab. No, I don't know the name of it.
It's but the building felt very old.
Oh, it was old. It was one of the old buildings at MIT. And it had a lot of little labs in it. I've forgotten the name of it. I don't know if it ever had a name. We mostly stood up. Yeah. And it was a small lab. Wasn't about as big as this room, but probably not as wide. You know, it's a nice little refuge from I don't know what.
Do you remember, were there other people working in this, working in this lab with you?
The next lab for officers were young men from good Lord, the far east.
Were they from China?
China. Yeah, they were from China. And they had gotten out just before they closed the gates on the Chinese. And they didn't know when they'd get back. Or they didn't know whether they ever wanted to get back. Yeah.
So they were working in the lab next to yours?
Yes, yeah. It was full of people like that. They had the Navy, some Navy people down in uniform at all times in another lab. Where they were going, I don't know. Remember.
Did you ever have a sense of what other people were working on, or was it all very secret?
It was mostly quiet. You didn't talk about it. They didn't want you to talk about it, as far as we were concerned.
Do you remember the names of anyone else you worked with?
Oh, Lord. I'm sure they're written down somewhere, but I never did see much of them afterwards, because they stayed on longer than I did. As soon as I could get out of there, I left.
Did you ever wonder why there was suddenly a security guard there?
Oh, they told us it was, for something very important. You didn't know what it was, but it was very strict that there would be no talk about it. Yeah, they took good care of that,
So.
No, my mother and father didn't know what I was doing, and it was just a little piece of it anyway. If it was all over the country at that time. So you put it all together, you had something.
Did you know did you know this was a big national project, or did you just know what was going on at MIT?
Oh, I knew it was a big project. Yeah.
You could just sort of get that sense.
Mm.
You weren't supposed to tell your family what you were working on?
No, I wasn't supposed to. They knew I was working on something secret. With wartime, everybody had secrets. It was just the way things worked.
Do you remember anyone ever visiting the lab who seemed to work for the Manhattan Project? Were there any Army officers or scientists?
There's one in our lab at all times.
The officer in your lab at all times?
No, nobody else bothered us.
Was he was just standing there the whole time?
Yeah. Yeah, we just were chemists. That's what you did.
Do you remember what time, what your day would be like? What time you would get in the morning?
I think I probably got in there by, I think 9 o'clock. I'm not sure of that though. And we were in there till 5 at night.
And you were coming up from Scituate every day, is that right?
Well, in the summer and in the winter, I was going into Cohasset. I mean, into Wellesley at night.
So
I live with my parents. Yeah, in Wellesley.
So during the winter, you would stay with your parents in Wellesley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it a bit easier to get to Cambridge from Wellesley?
Well, I used to, and then my dad got me a car, and I had a C on it because I was a very important person, and so I could get gasoline. See, during the war, you couldn't do those things, and so they gave me a C plate on my car so I could get gasoline to go back and forth.
Do you think you got the ability to get gas, the special license plate, because of what you were working on?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, you can't just walk in and say you want it. You have to have a reason for it, yeah.
Do you remember any other sort of special privileges or anything else that seemed sort of a bit strange, sort of that seemed like you were getting sort of some special things because of what you were doing?
Yes, you knew you were part of a big performance, but you didn't know what it was.
So when did you find out about what you had been working on?
When it went off, and of course it was this high in the papers as we came out of working, and I remember my father saying, I was telling him about what we'd been doing, and he said, he looked at me and said, it's the first time I ever knew a woman could keep a secret. And we both laughed. I never forgot that. And so then it became that, you could tell people what you were doing. Oh, everybody was terribly impressed.
Do you remember what other people's reactions were once they heard about the project?
Oh, they thought it was wonderful that I had done something to stop the war. You see, the whole scene is different, and so it happened, and it's going to be over, and that's different than just doing something. So people were glad to hear that it was done and that it was over. A lot of people now think it was a terrible thing to do. But if you'd lived through all that, and at the time, you were glad it was over. And that I was glad. glad it was over. I think most people were happy that it was a terrible thing, but it stopped something that was terrible too. You know, didn't get into Japan.
You were
Break that up.
You were telling me a bit earlier about how you were during the war. They would have officers patrolling the beach at night in Scituate, and you couldn't go out there.
Oh yes. Oh, we couldn't go after dark. You couldn't get on the beach. Now we live 3 doors down, 3 houses down from the beach, and on a nice night, and there were stairs down to the beach. But you couldn't go down them. You couldn't get off the stairs. And yeah, they had the patrol officer, Army, I guess it was. I don't know, forgotten whether it was Army or Navy. And they patrolled the beaches all along the coast. South Coast, I'm sure they did it on the North Coast too.
And you had a memory of the men in the dirigibles up above who were also flying around. Could you tell me that story?
Oh, heaven's sakes! There used to be office training and things going on, and they like to have groups come, you know, dance with them and ho ho ho, and so one of the air things would come off, and they would patrol the ocean in this coming into the harbor into Boston. And so they would go out at night, and they used to come right over where we lived in Scituate. And so they'd go around and give a hoot with their airplane coming over. So they would come in, and we'd go out and wave to them. Was that it? Yeah. As they went by, they'd call, "See you at 8 tonight," or something, you know, come down. And we had a great time. They didn't know anybody, you know. They were nice kids, you know. It was a nice thing, and everybody felt very good about doing it, you know, and going, because there they were, and they wanted to have a good time, you know. They'd come and go dancing and come home, and that was that. But it was, you know, something different for the kids who were going places. They go over our house in the morning, and the neighborhood would all wave at them. They're good kids. War was different. It was a long time. And you felt as though you were doing something good just to be friends. Yeah.
Before, you were telling me about how you would have blackout curtains as well on the house.
Oh, on the house facing the ocean. Yes, the side of your house towards the ocean had black curtains on it, so there'd be no giving anything away there. And it was all along the coast. Yeah, particularly near the big harbors. Boston, New York was crazy all along. And It was just a time in your life you wish you didn't have. You know, it was frightening.
Have your thoughts about the war and being involved in the Manhattan Project, have your thoughts changed about it at all over the years?
Yes, it stopped it. And that was very important. It had been on long enough. And it was terrible, but it stopped something. And it stopped it before we got into Japan. And I think all that was good. You know, you don't have to have a war.
When did you stop working at MIT?
Probably shortly after. I don't remember. I didn't work there very long after they dropped the bomb and war was about over. Yeah, I went to Florida. My sister and her husband were down there. And Charles was still in the Navy. And so he was out of Florida. And at that point. And so Betty was alone all day. And she kept saying, oh, come on down. And I'd say, oh, yeah. And then Charles wrote and said, Chickie, will you get down here? Betty's pregnant. And he's just alone all day. We have a house down here, and I have my car. And so I thought, well, I guess I can do that. So we took off to Florida to visit Betty and Charles, where we stayed about 6 or 8 weeks, and then he was through. So I came home by train, and they brought the car home. And they wandered around for a while. So that was fun. Yes, I got to know Charles. I didn't know Betty's husband very well. Oh, we were looking for the Fountain of Youth in St. Petersburg, Betty and I. We just got in. We dropped Charles off in the morning. He didn't need the car all day, so we just wandered around northern Florida and saw it all. And so we would search it all around, and we'd stop and it wasn't there. And we finally saw this one out back in our lovely green place. And so we went up and we were there, and it was Our Lady of Fertility. And Betty had 12 children, and I had 10. And our husbands used to say, did you forget to say thank you? Would you like to go back and say thank you? It was oh, well.
Well, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah, it is a good story, isn't it? Well, it was true. It was in St. Petersburg, and we so, and everybody's been happy. Yep. Betty lived here in West Newton for a long time, Betty and Charles, and they were always together. Her family and my family, and my parents lived up in Wellesley Hills, and so we always got together, and was nice. And then the leather business went kaput in Boston, and Charles had to leave, so they went out to Michigan. So the second half of her family is in Michigan. But her older ones stayed here.
And they still live around here?
The boys, yes. One lived in West Newton. One lives up in the western part of the state. And one lives out in the islands. Yeah. So, yeah, they're happy here, so they stayed. It's part of they've been through college and stayed here, so they just lived here. They go back to Michigan to say hi. It's not that far.
What did you do after you worked at MIT?
Nothing. Oh, I don't know how long. It wasn't very long. I was waiting for my husband to get through he's a surgeon, and he was down in New Orleans for 2 years doing, getting ready, and I've forgotten what they call it. And then he started out first it's outside of New York City somewhere, where he made something like $18 a month to learn, and he would come home for Christmas for 3 days from New Orleans, where he made maybe $10. They didn't make any money at all. And that went on for about 4 or 5 years. And then when he got through there, he was at Children's and Mass General. And then he became chief at St. Elizabeth's. And then we were married.
Did you know him during the war, or did you meet after the war?
I married in 1946. He couldn't go into the war anyway for some reason. I guess they wanted him to continue to be a doctor. Whatever. Anyway, he finished it. Anyway. And was a great doctor. Very caring doctor.
Yeah, that's so important.
And we loved children, seeing we had 10. And they were and are great. I have a great family. I have pictures of them somewhere. No, they're around somewhere. There's one over there. They're all as great as he is.
Yeah. So just one last question for you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
I don't think so. Except I'm a very old lady. I'm 94 years old, and I'm still walking, so I guess I'm still doing pretty well. God's been very good to me, and I thank him.